Live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out. Don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
Only 2 of the 9 men who cut their way out of the Constant Spring lockup earlier this week remain on the run, with the last of those caught held way far away in Westmoreland by the police not too long ago. But the question begs, why have there been so many jailbreaks in Jamaica? What is the police not quite getting right with those it is holding before transferring them to long-term detention facilities or even holding them until their matters in court are resolved? We get the perspective of a criminologist this evening on Lead Story. It's time. Let's start the show. Welcome to Lead Story on this Wednesday here on CVM TV. And so, as I noted, the police have captured 7 now of the 9 men who cut their way out of the Constant Spring lockup. It's about 1 a.m. on Tuesday morning that the men were discovered missing. And so far, of the 9 who went hooky, well, 1 was caught very soon afterwards. Talik Chambers back in custody. Brandon Ennis back in custody. Kemal Kelly back in custody. Junior Barnes back in custody. Richard Bishop back in custody. Don Q Douglas back in custody. Frey Messias, who's the only picture here of Frey Messias is him as a child. I highly doubt that a child was in the at the Constant Spring lockup, but the only photo that they have for Frey Messias is of a child. Looks like about 9 or 8 years old. He's back in custody as along with Alonzo Espute, all back in custody. So only about 2 are still evading lawmen. Yeah, so that was at the Constant Spring lockup. 3 were held in Trelawney this morning, around about 11 a.m. word emerged that 3 had been held in Trelawney. And then moments before coming on the air, 1 was held in Westmoreland. So they have traveled far in a short space of time trying to evade the law, but intelligence and coordination so good that not hard for the lawmen to track them down and bring them back into custody. But you have to ask the question, yeah, so many of these incidents, and from the top of your head, you can mention an incident in at the 100 Man in Portmore, Constant Spring here, other lockups across the island. Why is it that there have been so many? There was one infamous one, Black River in St. Elizabeth, where men cut themselves out, and I don't think all those escapees have been recaptured. And then in Ocherius in St. Anne, where, as they say in the streets, the man them lift up out of the cells overnight and are still on the run. Criminologist Jason Mackay joins me this evening for some perspective. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. I trust you are well, Jason.
I am very well.
Right. All right. So Tuesday morning, some gentlemen being held as guests at the Constant Spring lockup cut their way out of the cells. I hope you would have heard me say that there are about 7 of them that have been caught. The latest one, moments ago, caught in Westmoreland. Earlier today, 3 caught in Trelawney. They've traveled far in a short space of time, Jason.
Well, first I'd like to just say this is a testament to how effective the policing is now, that you can catch 7 out of 9 men within 48 hours. That's really remarkable, you know. That's tracking that is world standard tracking. For you to catch 7 of 9 escapees within 48 hours. That being said, I hear about the incidents, but you must remember that our lockups are being when you're talking about long-term detention, you know, that is really supposed to be at the Horizon Detention Center. Our police lockups are really designed for long-term detention. It's because there's so much crime, and by extension, so much men being charged that, you know, the Horizon can't keep everybody, so the police lockups have to be keeping some of these guys for years at a time. So it is an unfortunate consequence that when you're using a police lockup for this type of things, that these things will happen, but it's unavoidable, you know?
Yeah, I want to take the break now, Jason, but when I come back, I want to ask you, though, I've always felt that the lockup arrangements are perhaps wrong, and I don't know if you'll agree with me, but I've always felt that the Department of Correctional Services, even when people are being held, and I don't want to call them prisoners, people are being held at police lockups, that rather than using police resources to guard these people, it really ought to be the job of the DCS. I want to hear your perspective on that after this break. This is Lead Story here on CVM TV.
Millions of people are attacked by harmful mouth bacteria. The root cause of bad breath, gum problems, cavities, plaque, and tartar. That's why Colgate combined the best science and technology in Colgate Total. Unlike others, its superior formula fights bacteria and creates a powerful protective barrier for up to 24 hours to prevent them from coming back. Take control of your oral health with Colgate Total.
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winfred Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
From politics to global events, from social issues to breaking news, Lead Story Prime dives deeper, cuts through the noise, and uncovers the stories that shape your world. Join us every Tuesday at 8 p.m. for Lead Story Prime with me, George Davis, for an hour of incisive analysis, expert interviews, and unparalleled coverage of the issues you care about. Lead Story Prime, your front row seat to the most compelling discussions. Lead Story Prime, where the truth comes first. Only on CVM TV.
Welcome back to Lead Story here on CVM TV, talking about a situation at the Constant Spring lockup in St. Andrew, which happened on Tuesday morning, in the wee hours of Tuesday morning, as a country people would say, in the day before the hours, where 9 men cut their way out, one caught soon after, and the police have done a very, very good job in picking up the rest of them, just about 2 left on the run. I have criminologist Jason Mackay with me, who's making the very strong point that because these lockups weren't designed for long-term occupation by quote-unquote inmates, that it lends itself to the problem that we're having of people cutting their way out of these facilities and trying to evade the law. Jason, I was asking you about the role of the police as guardians of these people in lockup, as opposed to a unit such as the DCS being tasked with this responsibility. Your perspective on that? Jason? Not hearing Jason. Mackay.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I've always maintained that the lockups should really come under the Department of Corrections. I don't think that police officers should be used to guard prisoners. That's always been my belief as well. So we're on the same page with that. That's not to say that the police officers did anything wrong in this case. As I said, you know, when you're keeping, when lockups, when you're housing prisoners for long periods of time, there's an expected ratio of security personnel, for want of a term, to prisoner. So the type of ratios you have at, for example, Horizon, you don't have at a police lockup. The type of infrastructure you have at Horizon with the double fencing and the watchtowers and all of that, you don't have at a police lockup, because Horizon is designed for long-term remand. But when you have police stations being used for long-term remand, and it's being done because you can't do any better, we just don't have enough prisoners for the amount of we have enough prison space for the amount of prisoners we have.
Yeah.
And this is really a testimony to the type of work that has been conducted over the last few years. The amount of persons who have been arrested and charged is phenomenal. The system is bursting at its seams because it really isn't designed to have this much crime or this much police arrest.
Yeah. The issue, though, Jason, of contraband, because so often, ever so often, you will see on TikTok or on other social media videos of men inside prisons, not lockups, no, prisons, drinking Hennessy, swigging the latest cognac, music. They're smoking what appears to be marijuana. They're dressed to the nines, and they're having a good time. And you wonder, how is it that the contraband, and all of that is contraband, makes its way into these facilities and also causes you to say, well, is it this weakness which causes contraband of the kind that can be used to cut a grill or cut a piece of metalwork to allow prisoners to escape, if this is not a problem that the police ought to be held to account for? What say you?
Are you sure those videos are from police lockups, or are you?
No,
sure
man, I'm saying prisons. I'm saying prisons. So I'm saying if you see those in prisons, and I'm certain that there are prison videos, not lockup videos. But I'm saying if you see the amount of contraband that gets into the prisons to allow the guys to be doing this from time to time, keeping parties, you could be led to believe, well, if the police report is true that prisoners cut their way, cut the grill, cut the metal work, there must be then these things being smuggled into the lockups as well, in the same way that they're smuggled into the prisons. And I'm asking if the police should not be held to account for the smuggling of contraband that can be used to effect a jailbreak.
Well, remember, you're comparing what you've seen on videos in a prison scenario and assuming that means that the police lockups could be similarly breached. It's simply not the same animal, you know. The type of systems in place at a prison, the type of latitude that is given to persons at a prison because they live there for many years.
Yes.
It's totally different from a lockup where you pretty much spend 24 hours a day in a cage.
Yes.
You know, it's not the same animal. You have to look on it. You have to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges.
Yes.
There's no basis of looking at what happens in prison to determine, and I'm seeing contraband on a video, to assuming that contraband comes into the lockups.
Well, I'm happy I asked the question and you've answered this way, because you've given insight to something that certainly I never thought of, and I'm sure many people didn't, that because of the long-term nature of prison stays, if it is that certain things can be allowed to allow inmates to enjoy themselves and keep the peace and maintain the discipline, then these will be allowed, and at a lockup situation, it is more strict, is what you're saying.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, each lockup has its own culture and behavioral system. There are prisons, I should say, that have a family day and this type and have actual, you know, because it's a rehabilitation facility. So they have lots of stuff that you would never see in a police lockup. Now, a police lockup now is a far more stricter facility where you're literally in a cage for the whole day. But the difference with the police lockup is that the perimeters do not have the infrastructure that the prisons have, with, as I said, double walls, 16-foot walls, watchtowers, you know, and a type of facility. You don't have that at a lockup.
Yes.
You also don't have the same ratio of personnel to prisoner.
Yes, yes. I hear you on that. Let me take another break, Jason, and come right back. This is Lead Story here on CVM TV on this Wednesday.
Hawkeye, We work hard to develop state-of-the-art security solutions like our new Total Connect smart home automation system that gives you 24/7 access to control your appliances, lights, cameras, and doors using your smartphone, tablet, or PC. As the most trusted electronic security company in Jamaica, Hawkeye has the fastest response times to get to you when you need us most. Trust Hawkeye's Total Connect. Hawkeye, securing what matters most.
Jamaica is paving the way to becoming a republic. Our future, our choice. The time by the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs is
6:45.
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winfred Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
The following is a paid announcement by the Jamaica Labour Party.
Jamaica Labour Party is doing more for you and your pocket. No new taxes in 8 years. We have created over 250,000 new jobs. That's more Jamaicans working than ever before. Across every industry, we have delivered real progress. Real performance, not just promises. We're doing more for you, and we're not done yet. Choose results you can count on. Put your X beside the bell.
The proceeding was a paid announcement by the Jamaica Labour Party.
Welcome back to CVM TV. Last segment with Jason Mackay, criminologist, talking about the jailbreak at the Constant Spring lockup and how most of the escapees have been recaptured, only about 2 left on the run. Jason, may I lean into your law enforcement experience to ask you, is there a playbook that the police use when trying to track escapees from a lockup in the Jamaican context? And how are those rules or guidelines applied when you have multiple men on the run?
Well, I mean, we have 2 more on the run now, so we would not really want to discuss the protocols and policies to recapture until we have everybody, you know. But, you know, certainly, you know, you look on the public, and you request the assistance to the public in any way. You warn them about if they have a person's life because it is a criminal offense, and they themselves will end up behind bars, you know, and you engage operations to effect it, to effect the capture. I mean, there's a few other little secrets and tips to it, but in essence, that's how you move toward any felon, you know, any felon who has recently escaped. You know, you engage as much as you can in a search effort, acting on intelligence.
Yeah. Just to go back to that issue, I think it's an important aspect of the discussion that we can take up, Jason. The issue of the responsibility for watching over people in lockups before they go to long-term facilities such as remand centers, or, well, remand center longer term than lockup, but certainly prisons longest term. And the modernization of the force, the billions that have been pumped into the JCF over time to improve their technological capabilities, and then the physical infrastructure. Just saw the Anchovy police station opened, and I watched a tour of it, and it is a mightily impressive facility with quarters for recreation, for sleeping overnight, offices huge, the lockup holding area looking respectable, and it just looking like a modern facility. With all that money being spent there, the question is, how does the spend now, how is the spend made to transition the responsibility of safeguarding those who are in those lockup facilities to the DCS, even as the place remains a police station? Where does that have to start? Is that a 5-year transition, a 3-year transition? Can it be done within months? Jason, what say you?
Well, you have to understand, first of all, you know, you have to be careful that by introducing the DCS into the equation now, that we're saying the police did anything wrong. We haven't investigated it to determine that the police have done anything wrong yet. It could be something that the police are totally and completely faultless, and had the DCS been there, maybe the same thing would have happened. My reason for for wanting the DCS and police lockups rather than police is because the police are needed on the streets. We have hundreds of gangs combating currently, though we have young, strong men that could better be used fighting crime on the streets. And I think prisoners should be overseen by the Department of Corrections, not the JCS.
Right. Well, clearly I'm not talking about the Constant Spring situation because, again, no evidence that the police were at fault. And even if they were, I've always felt, even before Tuesday's incident, that it is something that we ought to do because, like you, I believe that the resources that will be freed up in terms of the men and women who are not on such duties at police stations, they can supplement what is happening where investigation of cases are concerned and, of course, the presence in public spaces. But I'm saying again, the transition to make this happen, for the JCF to work into their operations, the involvement of officers from the Department of Correctional Services inside the police stations, would it have to be a change that the JCF, it takes long for the JCF to make? Or, given that, well, both of them are under the same umbrella ministry, the Ministry of National Security, it is something can be done seamlessly, a phased move over 3 to 6 months. That's what I'm aiming at.
Well, currently, the first dynamic has to be human resources, eh? And there's a shortage of human resources because unemployment is at its all-time low. It's at 3.3%. So you don't have that abundance of young, strong men entering the Department of Corrections right now. Or a lot of them have entered the JCF, the JDF, and yes, a lot of them have also entered the Department of Corrections, but that wasn't based off of a budget to now take over lockups. If you're going to take over lockups, that's a massive additional employment required. And even if it can be found in the budget, where the body's going to come from? Right now, the security companies are complaining they can't find people to work. The fast food facilities are complaining they can't find people to work either.
That's a very strong point, because I think you wonder where the labor goes. Because as you rightly say, all of those, the quick service restaurants, Jason, they don't like the term fast food anymore. Well, you and I know what they are, but they call themselves quick service. They complain about the churn of staff. Every month, every week, they have to be hiring and retraining. So, as you rightly say, labor is short. All right, and we have to, for a long term, but for the long term, we have to look and say, okay, what is happening in our educational system? Why the bodies that we're churning out every year, 40,000 people reaching 18 every year, why aren't more of them suitable for the workforce? That's a long-term problem we need to tackle. But a short-term problem we need to tackle is we need to get some labor in here one way or the other. And if it means that we have to import a source, then we have to import a source. If we mean that we have to do a radical transformation of training young men 18 to 25 as fast as we possibly can and reculturing of them so they're suitable for employment, then we need to go do that. Because Jamaica does more than most countries when it comes to education. You know, the free primary, free high school, free art, subsidized tertiary. But whatever we needed to do, whatever we have done, but it just haven't landed as we hoped it would have landed. So we now need to go a further step and somehow get the 18 to 25 who missed the boat all along to be trained to be suitable for employment. Yeah, and I guess we can sum up what you've been saying by just putting it this way, that the switch, for those who agree with it, and if it's needed by from the perspective of the National Security Ministry, it will take some time because there are several considerations. Last thing before you go, Jason, for an 8th consecutive month, this country has seen a reduction in homicide numbers and the murder rate. Your reaction? Well, it hasn't happened by accident. You know, it has happened on the backs of young of policemen and women and soldiers in this country, working like they've never worked before. It has happened because of incredible leadership from the Commissioner of Police and his management team. And divisional commanders all buying into one singular plan. Let us save lives. So, I mean, I've been in the JCF for over 2 decades. I've never worked this hard. You know, it is really a massive effort by everybody, you know, that everybody's working tirelessly, you know, we're putting all efforts into it. And everybody is looking at the murder rate. That is what is everybody's goal. The less people lose their lives,
in 2025.
Yeah, I just want to remind you that there was a time when the police were in the news every day, and there were many quote-unquote experts who said we need to disband the JCF and start over again. We need to rename it. We need to do all sorts of things. How pleasing is it to see, as one of the JCF, that the reforms that have been taking place have led us to this point where we are perhaps the strongest the force has ever been in terms of its capabilities, its manpower, and the growing trust and appreciation that the people of Jamaica have for the work of the JCF?
Well, most of those people who said things like that, I've never seen one of them beside me with a rifle in his hand. So as a person who has served and has watched so much sacrifice of persons beside me, that I really, really feel that, we've accomplished something. It is really satisfying to, to when you look at a month and you're seeing how you can impact to assist in murders for a month. You're looking at 1 and 2 in your division. It's almost like a dream come true, because I have, in my over 2 decades of service, I have never experienced this. I used to, in my division alone, which has barely 30-odd murders now, I have been there when they had 160-odd for a year. So, and it's not because of the Civil War in the 70s or anything. I'm talking in the early 2000s. We were playing with figures like that, So to see it actually improve, it really feels good and it really is satisfying.
Yeah, my friend in the police force these days, when he has 12 murders across the island in 1 week, he says it was a bad week. And I say, whoa, what a new normal for the police. Island-wide, 12 murders in 1 month, in 1 week, and you say it's a bad week.
I think from a criminological standpoint, no. If this can occur in 2026, same type of reduction, we would then be in the same ballpark of Pan-American crime figures. For the first time, literally from 1993, we would be in the same average as the other countries in the Pan Am. If this could occur